Welcome back, everyone, here on the yellow stage. I'm Titinia, and I'm very delighted that the seats are filling up for this upcoming session. So, who of you did have a good lunch break? Please raise your hand if you did. Okay, some of you did, others didn't. If not, I can totally recommend a really nice food spot down there with falafels, just in case you were looking for something good next break. So, we will now be talking about sustainability. I am very delighted to now be handing over to Anke Schäffner, Chief Policy Officer at ZIV, die Fahrradindustrie, as well as Freya Wood, Sustainability Manager at Swap Feeds. Please welcome them with a loud round of applause. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our talk
I
today.
always go in a queue of applause.
My
If
name's
someone
Freya.
is clapping, then you are.
My name's Freya, and I'm the Sustainability Manager at SwapFeeds. But I also chair the Sustainability Expert Group at CIE. CIE is Cycling Industries Europe. We act as a united voice for the cycling industry towards the EU. We also have many expert groups. One of those, which Anke and I chair together, is focused on sustainability. We try to get the sustainability industry to collaborate, improving our environmental footprint, our circularity, our waste, due diligence, and human rights. So a huge range of topics that we work on. I'm going to hand over to Anke today to explain a bit more about the session.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Anke Schäffner. I'm Chief Policy and Advocacy Officer at the German Bicycle Industry Association, and I'm also co-chairing the European Sustainability Expert Group. So today's topic is Beyond the Hype, is sustainability still a smart move? And we chose this title, by intention in a bit provocative way, because as you are all aware, so movement is central to our industry. And so as we strive to promote active mobility. However, when it comes to sustainability, our industry must also ensure that it's moving into the right direction. At the same time, both our industry and society at large are facing a range of challenges these days, and including geopolitical crisis, for example. So this raises several questions. In these difficult times, how relevant is sustainability actually for our industry these days and for the cycling sector? Has its importance maybe diminished or increased, and or has it even become more vital? So these are the questions that we would like to discuss today, and we're looking forward to exploring this with our distinguished panelists.
Nice, and I'm happy to introduce them to come on stage. So firstly, we have Florian Baur from JobRad, which is a leasing bike company.
Yeah.
He is really passionate about getting more people on bikes.
Hi.
Hey,
Welcome.
Have a seat.
Second, I want to bring Will Butler-Adams on stage. He is the CEO of Brompton Bikes, the foldable bikes, with the mission
Here we
for
go.
urban freedom and creating happier lives.
Good boys.
Next, I have Mark de
Good.
Vries from the one and only Swap Feeds, the first bicycle as a subscription company. And fourth, I'd like to bring
start being sustainable.
Damien,
We don't need a glass bottle with
no,
shit.
Damien on stage, a different kind of representative. He works for BNP Paribas in their soft mobility and new sustainable. And finally, Dr. Sandra Wolf, the CEO of Riese Müller, engaged in mobility.
Okay, I think we move over here right now. Yeah, thanks for being with us. Oh, we have to move this a bit. Oh, perfect. Now we have the man and here the women corner, but that wasn't made by intention. It just happened. Yeah, nice being with you. I will start with the first question. So, think about it. So, on a scale from 1 to 5, with 1 being like the highest priority, where does sustainability rank among your organization's current business priorities? And explain why. So who would like to start?
Let me start. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
go ahead.
rank it at 2.
Okay, why?
Then I think number 1 for us is to grow the company and to also have a bigger impact in the world. But pretty directly after that would be sustainability. Also due to the fact that our business model is a circular business model, and circularity really sits within the core of our business, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Florian,
I can continue. So I would also do a 1 or a 2. first of all, obviously, we are a company that is obliged to make profits, so that's obviously a big priority. But then pretty quickly, sustainability is top of the list, and I think for two reasons. First, we have the privilege that we have sustainability built in our business model, right? So we are offering companies a benefit in which their employees can contribute massively to sustainable mobility behavior, which is, I think, a great thing, but also goes beyond that because sustainability is really in our company DNA. Because Uli Prediger, many of you know the guy that has founded JobRad, was a person that was very passionate about two things, about bicycle and about sustainability. And he was in his old job simply not happy with the fact that he could get a company car, but he couldn't get a company bike. And the rest is history, I would say. So sustainability is really part of our company DNA as such.
Okay, very good. Will, maybe, as next.
So I'm going to give an awfully political answer,
Oh, okay.
which is we are trying to bring a little bit of freedom and happiness to cities. That's number one. We're not going to be very happy in our cities if the planet is up shit creek. So therefore, sustainability is very important to happiness of how we live in the next 10, 20, 30 years. If we're going to have a bigger impact on society, we need to make more profit, to invest in our business, to innovate, to communicate. And actually, sustainability is mostly about waste. So if you have less waste, less electricity, less packaging, more considered design, then you are more sustainable, but you are also more profitable, which is great because it then allows us to have a bigger impact on society. So it is very important in the business because it helps us deliver the things that are the most important thing in our business.
Okay, very good. Who wants next?
Okay. Yes, thanks. It's first, I would say thank you. I will thank you for having me. I'm the only non-bike industry member, so it's a great honor to be part of the session. It's complex to answer for BNP Paribas because we have many different entities. What I can say is that our strategic plan is called GTS for Growth, Technology, and Sustainability. So sustainability is clearly one of the axes of our of our strategy. And the topic we have around sustainability, the ambition is really to bring it at scale because we did a lot of small initiatives, founded a lot of small initiatives, and we know we need to support a real transition at a broader level. As it's a panel related to bike, how does the bike fit into that topic? We are a massive player of the automotive business and the mobility business, but so mainly with cars. And bike, we see that as an opportunity to decrease the carbon intensity of our portfolio, in fact. We have taken commitments through different alliances of the bank industry to reduce the intensity of our investments, and bike is part of that. However, we've got there is some challenges for a player like us to work with bike, and to name the main one, I would say it's the fragmentation of the market. Too many brands, too many players, too many different usage, and too many people for that. For seeing it from our perspective of a bank. And as a consequence, we see that like maybe too much volatile, and maybe a lack of stability, which is not giving to a bank a lot of confidence towards that sector.
Okay. We will come back to that topic. So, Sandra.
So I have the watch here, and I had 6 more minutes to think about it, but I still think it's a very difficult question currently. And by heart, I would say it's one, and it's part of our company's strategy. And of course, it's 2025, the year where we wanted to be the most sustainable e-bike manufacturer. And all processes, or most of the processes, are already sustainable. We are in a sustainable business, but still in current times, and I think that was your question, it's hard to take the decision that sustainability has priority number one. And I think it's even harder maybe for companies that take the decision today, what is important and what not. So I would definitely say a one, because there's no other option, but it's currently a quite difficult question.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Thanks for sharing. Actually, that leads quite nicely on to the next question. So how is global economic uncertainty influencing your business priorities? And have you had to make any trade-offs? I don't know if anybody would like to take that one.
I mean, I can, if you don't mind, I can just go on with that. So I think that is a little bit what I just said. You have to divide it into what is relevant for your business and what maybe what do you need for survival. And not only for our company, but I think for most of the companies it's very difficult times, and you struggle either way. And I think then, of course, your priorities are a bit different. But when it comes to priorities, we are also talking about your attitude. And whatever you do and however your struggle is, wherever you are in life, I think it's important what is your attitude. And you can do everything you do in your whole life, in your business life. I think it's important to do it with a certain attitude. So sustainability, for example, for me is this kind of attitude. And it's nothing that you just skip, even though maybe you have a cost situation that is rather difficult. So if you have this attitude to do it better and to go maybe for a sustainable way, you usually don't think about it. You just maybe do it a little bit less or a little bit less cost intense, or maybe with a longer time period. But if I speak about us, my company, we would never leave this attitude. So I think, yes, there's obstacles, but we do it with the same attitude as all the time.
Okay, that's very motivating.
Can I just add to what Sandra's saying? There's a slight feeling that sustainability is some tremendous cost, and that because we're going through a difficult time, we can't be sustainable. But it actually it's a mindset, and you need to get it into your organization. But it takes a while to really bed in, because if you suddenly think, oh my gosh, I need to be sustainable, you're fiddling around with stuff that was designed 10 years ago, and you're trying to fix something after the event. That's quite difficult, but you can do it, and there's stuff you can do. When it gets really clever is when you decide you're going to design something from a green, plain sheet of paper and design sustainability into the product from the start. That gives you much more freedom to think about how you make it, where you make it, logistics, packaging, supply chain. And if you get that right, then you can design profitability and sustainability into that product from the start. So at the moment, we may not have tons of orders, and it might be challenging, but it's an opportunity to get your house in order and build the foundations for the future at a really early stage. So we have spent the last 5 years working on a project which is, sustainability isn't the only element, but it forms an enormous part, but it's from the very start designing it in, which gives you much more freedom and will deliver efficiency, profitability, and sustainability.
That's a very good point, actually, not to see like sustainability and efficiency and cost like as a contrary, but like to think it together, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect.
Yeah,
So
adding to that, so we design and build our bikes to be with us for the entire life cycle. So we do not sell bikes, but we rent it out on a subscription, which means that what you were saying is actually in the heart of our product design. So if we make bikes that are more sustainable, actually we make more money. So there's a real good driver on every aspect. We look at every part of the bike to really make it more durable, more sustainable, and in the end of the life cycle, when we need to replace it, also to replace it in a way that also those costs, which are also our costs, are also minimized in that sense. So for us, sustainability did not change when the economy changed, because we need to be sustainable in order to be a successful business.
Yeah, very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Maybe from your view, Damien, so when you look at your clients, do you see a sort of a shift because there are so many crisis going on, that they have a different focus now?
What we see as a consumer finance company, I think that there is still a demand for premium products, not necessarily sustainable products. I think the appeal of the brand is really very strong. We see it in the technology products, for instance. But commodities are quite suffering. So I think that more than sustainability in itself is not sufficient today. For first, it's premium brands, because the image of the brands, the values, but the quality itself, and then if it's sustainable, it's a plus, but it's not mandatory. We saw that in several markets, not only on the bike, but also in the energy transition for us, and we saw that premium brands are working well, and low cost, it's kind of for us, a consumer finance company, maybe they don't need consumer finance to buy those brands anymore. But there's kind of arbitration.
Okay.
Maybe I have a question linked to that for the other panelists. To what extent do you think your customers are willing to pay more for a sustainable product?
So I don't believe personally that you can sell sustainability. I don't believe that. I think for customers' choice, at the end of the day, it's price, it's quality, it's brand positioning, and there's a lot of other things. The way we look at it is, for us, sustainability needs to be there, right? It's a hygiene factor. So we talk about it and we make it obvious and we make it transparent. But we don't believe that you can put a price premium on a product because it's sustainable, because we look at it the other way around and say you cannot sell at the long run products that are not sustainable. That's how I would look at it. And obviously, maybe also to the point that was mentioned before, we are in a little bit of a different position because we run a services business, right? So we don't have to worry about production, and we don't have to worry about supply chains and stuff like that at the end of, but on the other hand, for us, it's very much the question mark, how can we influence the whole industry in a positive way so sustainable products get more demand? And I do think there's a lot of leverage that is still around that we can still apply to the market.
I might add just a little bit to that. If you ever get a flame and put it onto your hand and light the flame, you can look at it and watch it for quite a long time. It doesn't seem to be hurting. And then suddenly it really, really burns, but there is this like lag. And the consumer is the same. We have a climate crisis coming at us, and it's real, but we can see it, but it's not hurting us. So we're pretending it's not there. But what will happen is it will increasingly hurt the consumer, to a point where the consumer behavior, I think, will change. Unfortunately, I think there is still the majority of businesses on planet Earth are not sustainable. And I think they might pretend to be, but I don't think they are. But the consumer behavior, I believe, as climate change affects our lives more, will change again and will come very fast. But you can't change a brand very quickly. It takes 5, 7, 10 years. So if you are a brand that thinks, oh, it's all gone away, now it's just about premium, sustainability is fine, that was yesterday's. In 5 years' time, when suddenly the consumer cares, you're too late. You do not have the integrity, you do not have the supply chain, you haven't thought it through. So I do believe it is important that we continue with understanding how our products affect planet Earth. And as I keep repeating, you don't have to pay for it, you have to think it, design it, and build it into your business. It shouldn't be a premium, it should be a culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Sandra, what's your view? You just released your latest sustainability report. Your company talks a lot about your activities in this field. So do customers care about it?
The question is, for whom do you do it? So we don't do it for the customer and to get more bikes sold. So we do it for the reasons you just said, Will. And I think it's also maybe the customer can demand and that we take care and that he or she is safe and can buy a product that is taken care of in terms of sustainability. It's not that they have to ask for. It's our responsibility to do it. In terms of costs, Will, I'm not sure if I really agree with you, because I think it's quite cost intense, at least at first glance. I fully agree with like integrating it into the processes, but we had a couple of projects where we were also first and tried to find new and sustainable processes. And in the beginning, it's quite tough to install those kind of processes. And now it's fine because it's like all set and it's all, most of the processes are done. But in the beginning, if you are a transforming company, it was in time and also capacities. You need resources, money-wise and people-wise, knowledge-wise. But when you are there after 5 years, exactly as you said, then it starts to roll and is kind of intrinsic. I know what you mean. I just want to challenge you.
I agree. I agree. I mean, we're working on a project at the moment which is totally too expensive to put on our bike. It's new technology, but we are putting a little bit on our bike to help it. It's a bit like early photovoltaic cells. They were really expensive, now they're cheap. So you have to back it a little bit. If we did it in our entire bike, we'd be too expensive. So there is an element of that. But in my belief, there's tons of stuff in our business where we're wasting money because we're not being sustainable. So if we did that, we could pay a little bit more for some of this other cool stuff. So I still think we can be cheaper. I mean, I might be wrong, but I'm still in belief. There's too much waste in our organization.
Okay, agree. Yeah, I would like to talk a bit about regulation. So there has been a recent study of the so-called JARO Institute in Germany, and there more than 50% of the companies stated that the EU's decision to revise the CSDDD meant their planning more difficult, actually. So you heard about all these discussions going on at European level, that there's the omnibus legislation, and legislation is going to be watered down. And so how are you actually dealing with this regulations being shifted like almost at a daily level, so to say, and which creates uncertainty? So how do you deal with that? Does it have any impact on your business, actually?
Yeah, let me start.
Mark, yeah.
Actually, Freya is my colleague, and she's really actively engaged in it. So she could probably be on the panel and tell even more about it. But to us, since sustainability is so ingrained in what we do as a business, the CSRD stuff on top of it was not there to change our processes or our work. It was to report on it. So what we were already pretty advanced in reporting. Now we more or less stopped it or postponed it, but the work continues. So we did not change the process because of the legislation, nor do we now stop or slow down. I do like, but I'm not sure if Freya agrees, I do like the fact that we have now more time really doing stuff instead of reporting on it, because it was a big project already for us as in the company.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. If I may, from our perspective, in fact, I think that the legislation for many things, such as reporting, job has been done already, so it's already integrated, it's not changing that much. And in fact, the legislation, even if we are moving back, in fact, going back, it helps us to take the right direction and to put all the stakeholders to internally. So it was really key, and job has been done. What I see, which has a strong impact more than legislation, actually but I'm not in the industry directly, but it's the change in local policies and mainly in subsidies, for instance, where it affects a lot the market. In France, you had plenty of subsidies to buy a bike. You don't have them anymore, so people are delaying, waiting to know if they will have new subsidies or this kind of stuff. And in fact, it's that we are more impacted by this kind of decision than by the legislation itself.
Okay, I see.
I mean, I can add that what I realized is then when we started to work strongly into our sustainability strategy, we did a lot of things that we wanted to do, so which was out of our vision on how we see our business growing sustainable. And then when it was clear that we had to report more, all of a sudden our focus shifted much more and resources shifted. The team had to cover more documentation things because we wanted to be prepared. And what I found personally quite difficult is how to put the priorities on the projects you really want and see the industry or your company going further, or the things you have to do. And that was quite a difficult decision. So when it was revised, and I was always the one who said also in public that it's really necessary to have documentation and to have rules and regulations. But at that point, I was also kind of happy because now we have data and we are able to have documentation. But we again shifted our focus and said we rather go into our vision again and see and do the projects we really want. For example, our aluminum project, our bike box, our recycling projects, no one asked for, and maybe of all the regulations we would have never done it because we had to document and to follow the regulations. So now we are trying to keep the data because data is important to really work in, but we still go where our heart brings us and what we see is important for our company. And so I think many companies shifted to documentation, have teams that document, and in the end there's nothing behind. It's just what others tell you what you should do, and this is so we have to find the right mix and match and balance to do this kind of sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely, and it binds a lot of capacities, of course, and resources within a company, to fulfill all this regulation and so on.
And what you see in the companies, the departments are getting bigger, the sustainability units and teams are getting bigger because you have to do documentation and not because you do sustainability projects that bring exactly what Will says. Is about recycling, is about circular design and things like that. And I think it's more important to have a vision on how you want to make your company sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And to really implement it also at the product level, right? Okay.
I would just add, our politicians, as you well know, don't have a clue because none of them have really done much in the way of real work, and they're professional politicians now. So if nothing else, and obviously we've had Brexit, so we've got a whole load of politicians who's got this new job and they don't really know what they're doing either. So at the very least, as an industry, we need to spend time with politicians to educate them and to get them to understand our industry so they don't make laws that are then negative to the progress we're trying to make. And sometimes we don't think it's our job to talk to politicians, but unfortunately it is because they don't understand our world. So we need to help and make sure the next laws are not stupid laws and help us be more effective. Because we are competing not just inside Europe, we're competing globally. We need to make sure that the regulations that we have allow us to compete on a global scale. And if they're smart and clever, we can get the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
makes sense.
I think, sorry.
No, just adding to that, I think we don't believe that, or we do believe that regulation is necessary. So we don't believe the free market powers will fix sustainability. That's not going to happen. My personal conviction and also of ours as a company. We also do believe that the motivation behind the European regulation in creating transparency was essentially the right one, because you need transparency because you cannot manage things where you don't know what happens. So that's also, I think, the right thing to do. What is, I think, the killer for economy, and if I want to make one wish, we need stability, right? You cannot go left and right. In this particular case, I can echo what my colleague said. We were quite grateful because we could channel our resources into directions that we thought were more productive in terms of reaching our sustainability goals. But I would say in general, uncertainty is especially in these times, we shouldn't have that. And the second thing I would say, my second wish to regulators is also that we just need to repeat and repeat. Please continue considering it as a framework that leaves enough wiggling space for the industry to actually do their business, right? Don't try to fix every last single corner case that might happen at some stage, because by that you will produce the result that we have seen right now, that you have to spend all your time writing reports, collecting data, and then nothing happens. So also, let's try to remind also politicians when we talk to them, hey, it's not your job to do our job, right? It's your job to create the framework conditions so the right things can happen.
Yeah, and to add this, I think what I heard also from many entrepreneurs is that all the regulations, they kind of established fear. Like, as you just said, how could I know if somewhere in the world a child is working on my product? And I met so many companies that said, oh, that sustainability or regulations went into fear of doing. And I mean, I think that's the worst thing that can happen, that all of a sudden everybody connects this idea of sustainability with the fear of doing, and that's extremely counterproductive in what we as entrepreneurs or as company want to do, because we want to make, we want to create, we want to have visions and not having fear of doing, And if you go to more like business-oriented panels, there was always this huge fear of doing something wrong. I mean, maybe that was also the one and only statement to say, okay, this is not good, the regulations, because I have a fear. But on the other hand, sustainability is so positive and has so many positive sides, and it's so full of heartful things, and it's so bad that it only comes to bureaucracy and to fear, and that is what happened in Brussels and also in Germany a lot. Yeah. That it completely went in the opposite direction. And that was one of the biggest mistakes, to how is it communicated, how many regulations are they, how bureaucratic is it, so not having anything positive in it.
Yeah, that's actually a wonderful message, like, of course, we are all willing to be compliant, but we should rather see like the positive and inspiring things in sustainability, instead of saying, okay, we need to fulfill regulations. Yeah.
And of course, if you're telling this narrative that somewhere in the world is maybe you cannot control everything, and then you will get to, I mean, many stories around, you have to pay a lot of money, you have to go to prison, whatever, and then oh my God, sustainability is something really, really bad.
Yeah, to summarize, it sounds like you're all on the same page about regulation can really help get the data, be transparent, but the current way in which it's being rolled out has just created a reporting burden, just more work of reporting than it is creating that positive value on the negative side of things, which I think is really interesting. My next question is going a little bit back to what Damien said at the start. But it's more a question for the people in the cycling industry. So banks see the cycling industry as promising, but volatile and fragmented. What can we do as an industry to make us become more attractive?
Maybe I can start with that, because I believe we have already done quite a bit as bike leasing industry to make the bike industry more attractive to banking, because what we hear from our banking partners who refinance our leasing business, they tell us it's a very attractive portfolio because it has a very large number of assets. The average value per asset is very low, so the default risk of the entire portfolio is very low. And arguably, the whole leasing business has contributed massively to the growth of the bike industry, and as such also has put more people on bikes. So if you take JobRad alone, then every 50 euro that is spent in the German bike retail is going to JobRad. And I think it's not going to stop there, because we have now also created a green ABCP program. So it's a financing vehicle for our leasing business that has been certified with a green bond certificate. So also the investors of the banking partners can specifically invest into sustainable assets and sustainable business models. So let's not see from a finance perspective the cycling industry only as M&A and strictly financing, because I think if you create smart business models that sustainability by design, right? How can you do that? And I think that's a lever that we have created there that has created a lot of interest also from the finance industry. Maybe not in buying and selling companies, but in a very smart way of helping grow the entire industry.
One thing to say: if you imagine the grocery store in Germany in the 1950s, it was owned by families, and you had a different family with a grocery store in one town and another family with a grocery store in another town. In the last 75 years, that has gone. We now have grocery stores that are universal, that are incredibly sophisticated, data-driven, and they have to be. Because if they buy strawberries on a weekend when the rain falls, they throw all their strawberries in the bin. So they have to have insight data, highly connected, highly professional, highly data-driven industry. The bike industry is one of the few industries left that is not consolidated. It is still very much driven in Japan, China, Europe, North America by enthusiastic independent bike shops. That is a real threat to the sustainability of our industry because the data insight, the forecasting is very weak, which is why we've gone through the problems we've been through in the last 2 years. So we need a revolution in cooperatization, in consolidation of our retail sphere to bring data analytics, footfall, insight, website data to help us forecast more accurately. Until that point, the banks will charge us a premium and a stay away.
Damien, maybe you can add to that.
No, I'm just to rebound on what Paul says and then on Rob said. Just we have this kind of industry also. We are also doing leasing for cars. We're trying to enter on the buying market, so we do it also. And this is indeed. And I was quite interested by the green bonds because we are also starting to issue green bonds on bike for this year. But it's really a service model, and it's not related. If we look at the industry on the manufacturer side, it doesn't change the topics that was mentioned by Rob, but that it's very fragmented, and for us, it's too many players. And in fact, if you look at the bike sector for sports, it's not the same as the one for logistics, and it's not the same for other kind of usage, and we don't know how to manage that. And indeed, the data is really key for us to have a more predictable market. It doesn't mean that we are expecting for full consolidation, but we need to have more access to the data to understand how it works and which are the right players to invest in.
Mark, maybe you can add a bit with it's a different business model, so I think it's also a different perspective that the banks have. Okay.
Yeah, I think also looking at Florian's point, I think this in many businesses, the service part on top of a business model is always the business that thrives the most. I think if you look at your scale that you have, you hardly touch any bike, so you can really build on
Lucky you.
on the industry that does all the work. And if this industry is still small, fragmented, not so professional as the car industry, I feel that a business model on top of it, they see a lot of benefits, but the businesses underneath, I think they need to be bigger, more professional. If I would be a banker, I would really want that before I really would invest, because it is still very volatile.
I think part of the solution we need to have also some more manufacturers on board together with the retailers. What we see, for instance, in the automotive business is kind of stock financing applied for the cars. So we finance the brand, finance the cars which are in the stores, in the dealer shop. I think there is things we should work on together with the large brands, the larger manufacturer, to work to see we can innovate this kind of stuff. Also to provide more services to those dealer shops, bike dealer shops, which are suffering also currently because they are overstocked, even if it's getting better now.
Okay, nice. Shall we take a question from the audience?
Yeah.
We have some time left.
If there are any questions, so yeah, feel free to stand up and ask a question if you have one.
Otherwise, we have plenty more to ask.
No? Okay. Oh yeah, there we got one. Do I have a...
We have a microphone
Yes,
coming.
it's coming.
Sebastian Rodini from Sustentio. I heard specifically Mrs. Wolf, and I hear you that you're saying sustainability has been linked to fear, while at the same time I see that in the market there are issues like, for example, if you look at the supply chain topics that came up also with Shimano or with other suppliers. I mean, the supply chain is not free of issues for most companies. And of course, some are doing a great job, some are doing a mediocre job, and then there are some companies also here at this trade fair, I don't think on this podium, but at least at this trade fair, which have larger issues. So do you think that, isn't this like a competitive question of you distinguishing you from those who are acting less responsibly? And isn't it like also a huge opportunity to say, look, we are working closely with our suppliers, we maybe have regional suppliers, or we know them really well, and we know that the responsibility continues. Like this fear issue, I think it's a huge opportunity, especially for companies like the ones sitting here on the podium, to distinguish yourself from others who might be acting less responsibly. Are you continuing to go down this path and maybe even to promote or to advocate for supply chain law that is strict? Like the direction that is being taken now is that the European supply chain law will be less strict than the American one. If you look at the Forced Labor Prevention Act regarding the Uyghurs, for example, the US is now having a stricter supply chain law than the one that is on the table for Europe. What do you think about that?
It's a question for me explicitly. Yeah, I completely agree that it's a great opportunity, and that is why we are doing it also, to not only, I mean, be in a competitive advantage, but also to change like what is in the industry. And I myself, I don't know to the last thing that we are doing it correctly, but I think that it's exactly what I mean with fear is you need to go further step by step, and sustainability might be a black box and we never know what we find, but you have to be brave enough to look where you want to look and maybe find something that you don't want to see at first glance, and also cope with it, you know, because it can happen to all of us that somewhere in the world something is found, but you have to be very self-confident that you will find a solution for it. But the big fear maybe is also to be blamed for it and to be 100% perfect. But in sustainability, you are not perfect, and you have to be, yeah, you have to be ready to see also things that you need to solve. And I personally think that's a huge step also for a company, because if you commit to sustainability, you're also judged for it. And maybe people, other companies think you are perfect, but I would never say we are perfect. I would never say we are ready. I would never say that there might be something, but I think I'm brave enough to go the way. And I think what I wanted to say is that with some regulations, or the huge amount of regulations, we start companies not to do anything because they fear to go this way, to fear to have a that their image might be scratched somehow. And I think it's from I'm talking just personally. I think people may think I'm like, yeah, I do everything correctly, but I don't, you know, and none of us can say that we are doing things perfectly. We try our best, and that is sustainability. Try your best. And all of us, we have to try our best. So it's a competitive advantage, I think, but it's something that is also, in a way, a tough job.
Yeah, I would add, for us, we don't think that the consumer is sufficiently educated to make that decision. So I don't think at this minute in time there's a particular competitive advantage with the consumer on that front. But inside your organization, your staff care deeply, certainly our staff do, care deeply about how we treat our staff, our supply chain, the staff in our supply chain. I mean, perfect, forget it. We are so far from perfect. We keep screwing up, but it's intent that matters. If you're trying to get better, if you're trying to improve, that's what matters. And when you find your supply chain, it's about education. It's not about your supply chain being wrong. It's about educating them. And I keep coming back to the same thing. You tend to find the reason where businesses are not sustainable, either in how they treat their workforce or in how they treat the environment in which they're operating, is because they're inefficient. Actually, if you treat your staff better, you get better outcomes in terms of performance. If you don't put the chemicals down into the river, you can recycle them, it costs you less money, and you make more profit. So it's about educating your supply chain to let them understand that the way they're operating isn't actually efficient, nor is it sustainable.
Yeah, and to add this is education is important because a lot of times we don't have any option. So I think one of the most asked questions is, what do you do if you audit a supplier and there's a problem? Do you kick him out of your portfolio? And then you can only say, okay, but I only have one. I mean, there's no other options.
Yeah.
A lot of times you can just say, like with Amazon, I take B or C or D because there is no other option or a very difficult one. So we need to educate and we need to develop together, I would say.
Nice. I think we've highlighted lots of challenges in successfully being a sustainable bike industry. But with the last couple of minutes, I thought we'd end on a more positive note. So quick fire round. What keeps you optimistic about the future of sustainable business? And I'll start with you, Sandra.
I'm always optimistic, and especially about sustainability. So there's no, I'm super optimistic.
I think that on the long term, sustainability will be the only model because we see all the crises coming on and the difficulties for our business partners to cope with those crises. And I think that at the end, sustainability will be the only way to cope with that and will be the most efficient.
And I think for us also, if you look at this podium, I think the awareness is there. Also the positivity about where we are going is there as well. For us as a company, 3 years ago, we decided to become a B Corp. That also really helped internally. So the motivation of the staff that really wants to put in the extra mile every day. I am convinced that ultimately, if companies like us have this conviction, ultimately the world will change in a positive way.
Yeah, we mustn't beat ourselves up too much because we are managing to move a 90 kilo, 100 kilo human being around a city with 10 kilos of stuff, maybe 15 kilos or 18 kilos if it's an e-bike. Most other people are whizzing around in a metal box that weighs 2,500 kilos. Get a grip. We are in the most efficient mode of transport world, and it makes you happy. That is totally awesome. We need to get our supply chain and other few bits and bobs better, but fundamentally, we are in the mega nirvana world, so we should be very happy.
Well, look, I think we're just kind of going through a, I would call, dialectic of change. I think there was a moment pre-Ukraine war in Germany when you got the feeling, okay, now eventually society has got it, what sustainability actually means, and there needs stuff to be happening. I mean, there were Fridays for Future. You can say a lot of negative things about them, but they created an awareness and also a certain momentum. Then I think Ukraine happened and a lot of other crises happened. The pendulum swings back a little bit. So we see a backlash a little bit on sustainability at the moment, which I think is completely normal if you look at big changes in society and also big changes in your company. And I think Churchill once said, you can rely on the Americans to do the right thing before they have tried everything else. And I think this is also true for society as a whole. So I fully believe sustainability will be back because there's simply no other way. And I strongly believe that there's going to be a new base from which we can make the society a more wealthy, a more happy, and a more sustainable one in the future.
Okay, thank you. So coming back to a question from the title, is sustainability still a smart move? I think we can sum up that all of our panelists agree. And so we all say that it's more than relevant and it's in your DNA, and you have to think it from the product side. So many interesting news, and I hope that we'll spread this motivation and this commitment to the whole industry and also to the EUROBIKE for the next few days. So thank you very much for being with us. So please give us a huge applause for our panelists. And also, of course, thank you to our distinguished audience, and thanks, Freya, for moderating here today with me. It was really a pleasure, and I hope to see you all around and enjoy the rest of the fair. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot